Hey Chooms, with development of Cyberpunk 2077 sequel, codenamed Orion, well underway by now, I reckon it would be a good time to start getting our hopes and desires out there in the cyberspace, as CDPR do appear to listen and value input from the community. So I'd like to kick things off with my most wanted features, and while I lay down my current top 10 things I'd like to see in Orion, have a think about your top 10 things and let me know in the comments below. If this video hits enough views and has enough comments to warrant a good cross-section of players and desires, I'll shove it into a spreadsheet and formulate a community wish list video. So go nuts and let's get those mind juices flowing. It goes without saying, I suppose, that we all probably want more of the same. More great story, characters, set pieces, environments and references and all that refined gameplay that we have right now. Basically more of what makes the Witcher series and Cyberpunk 2077 so exceedingly good. And if that's all we get, I'll still be very happy merc, but I'm a greedy merc too and have some very specific would-be nice to haves, which will start at number 10. And yeah, if you enjoy this, please don't forget to drop a like and subscribe and turn on notifications to be kept informed of new videos. It helps us both out. Oh, and obviously this has spoilers for 2077. I gotta say that just in case. So, number 10, Endgames. I still, possibly to my detriment, and fueled by some kind of insanity I guess, want an endgame of sorts. If I want to fire up Cyberpunk 2077 and have a drive around the city and cause some havoc, I'd like it to be post the main story events, so endings will probably need to facilitate this in the next game, if it's going to be a thing, which is hard given that the city always wins, but maybe it's not going to be in this city. Anyway, if it can be a thing, imagine continuing to exist on a day-to-day with heists and races and gigs and just being a night city or wherever we are merc in a city-state that is how we left it at the end game of Orion, however that is. I think that would be very worthwhile, although not something they've really done in the past with their games being so set narrative heavy, but it's still something I'd like to see, but it's right at the bottom of the list. Number 9, better minigames and repeatable quests. I like to see a lot more of this stuff that we saw creeping in the updates, from fully fleshed out arcades to better racing games. There's a lot for developers to get their teeth into here. Now, I don't mean Yakuza style, or I think it was Yakuza, where you go around mowing lawns, mundane daft stuff, but maybe we can help out Trauma who are pinned down like we saw on the flyover when they finally opened it, and all the other things they added in the 3 years post-launch in the enhancements and updates. It made the city feel more alive and interactable. The sky is the limit, really, with this kind of stuff in such a great environment. Repeatable quests like the vehicle heist were fantastic and could be expanded upon. Live and randomly spawned cyber psycho attacks and max tac events would be very cool too to wander by and get tangled up in. Number 8. Speaking of vehicles, racing games were handled like the horse racing in The Witcher 3. These were only ever really a sideshow, a kind of a bolt-on curiosity, not very well fleshed out, beyond the microcosm of what they were used for. And in The Witcher 3 it was fine, there was only ever one roach. Well, I know all Geralt's horses are roach, but you only have one during the course of The Witcher 3. And despite the vinyls on our new vehicles in Cyberpunk tagging our rides as cyber roach mounts, they still seem to be a much more prominent part of Cyberpunk, and I think their place in the world needs some more love beyond the varied way of getting from A to B. There's quite a bit to expand on here, and probably more you can think of, from obtaining a garage to store them in, to being able to paint them, steal a car and store it GTA style, yes please, modification shops and drag races, hell yeah, being able to soup up a vehicle both performance and looks wise and combat wise, refueling when you have to do long trips across the continent if they are opening up the world in such a way, that would be cool. But they could also make the tech tree lean heavily into vehicles and make them an even more functional part of combat and the world in general. Hell yeah. Number 7. This is quite a simple one, but I think it's a simple one that would have a good impact, and that's interactive immersion. I feel like we need more quality of life animations. I think I need to see that XL burrito coming at me in 4K before a new X takes a honking bite. Drinking is not just for cutscenes, it's for life. This is a minor request, and modders have shown it to be easily possible, but obviously it's more complex in the grand scheme of making sure it's not a buggy thing in a launch game, but I believe it's eminently doable. And yes, I know it's just a cosmetic thing, but sometimes small things really make a difference on how our place in the world actually feels more tangible. If we buy drinks from a vendor and we drink them, they shouldn't just disappear. We should get to see V drinking them, or whoever. So yeah, anyway, moving on. Number 6. A bigger story. Hear me out, I'm explain. So hold fire on the comments. Firstly, V's story was very focused on V's, relatively speaking, minor self-preservational issues. We happened to tiptoe around and blunder through some massive story arcs and plots that were happening whether we intended to or not. And whilst we did have an impact on some, all in all, there wasn't a massive overarching story arc from start to finish beyond your survival and your impact on the world as you tried to survive. Just like in The Witcher 1 though, that story was a beginning, I think. Stuff was bubbling. Take The Witcher game. Personal midweight story of Geralt as he interacts with some larger plots and events in the world, all set in a backdrop of war and upheaval. In other games, we often find a protagonist at the forefront of a large event and basically the linchpin in it. Take Mass Effect, for example. Shepard is the messiah. He's the hero. Without him, all life is doomed. Or whatever you decide. It feels big, it feels grandiose, and it works in a transformatively exciting and enthralling way. Sorry, I'm laughing because I'm just combining words for fun at this stage. CD Projekt Red games, on the other hand, do a great job of you being a character driven by your own set of morals in the existing world and pursuing your own story where all this other shit is happening around you, as opposed to you being the main thing that's influencing this big story. How big or small a cog in some of the events you come across is largely down to you, and we see the kernels of these events being sown in 2077, from the black hole bursting at the seams due to cheeky netrunner shenanigans and more, to another looming corporate war, or even the conspiratorial truth about our overlords from Alpha Centauri. The scene has been set, and like a tinderbox, things are set to go supernova. The tower ending shows us a glimpse of this, showing the heavy militarization and corporate tussling that's happening in the void left by Arasaka's downfall, and things do look dark, and dark is good and very exciting. So this could be a bigger story, bigger world state where we, like Geralt, would be neutral and pulled in and out of the rival powers that be, while just kind of trying to mind our own business or eventually getting involved if it suits us or whatever. Beyond having a superpowered build and a badass merc or witcher, being a god-hero complex kind of character is never the vibe I've gotten from CD Projekt Red, and it's why the worlds are so exciting to exist in. So bigger events are more exciting, they pose more threat, and the stakes are much higher than your own personal existence as in the first game. So let's go there. Give our new V some more impact in the world as new, bigger than us events take place like we saw in Phantom Liberty. So the existing format does work, but maybe let's just get a little bit closer to that hot corporate war or AI war. Number 5. So, new locations. Scaling up of the world is going to be a requirement, I think, and I really want to see that. I love Night City, and I do still think it should focus heavily in the new game with interiors and other areas expanded, but I think Unreal Engine 5 should allow the team to really broaden the scope and scale up, adding places hinted at in 2077 like Atlanta and Tokyo, where you can fly between the cities, or in the case of Atlanta Drive, we've got to get to see where the Caldos ended up, and let's not forget Crystal Palace and other space locations in general. Probably my most desired places to visit, although I can imagine they would be less expansive compared to another full-blown city. This is probably logistically a massive task and a massive ask, and Night City itself still has so much to offer if, like I said, interior locations are fleshed out, and some more unfinished areas are given some tender love and care, like that walled-off casino in North Westbrook. But in short, new vistas and places to explore are paramount for me. Well, not paramount, they're number 5. Anyway, moving on. Number 4. If we're going to have new locations, we're going to need some exciting gangs to dismember. It didn't sound as bad when I wrote that. Here are some fun examples I've been cooking up off the top of my head that I think would be great. First and foremost, we need, and I think this is the only one that I actually definitely really would love to see based on, a certain character, Ozob. I think we need a terrifying clown posse. So like Ozob on Nightmare Mode, very militaristic-y and very scary, clowny, unhingedly. Yeah, I mean, I love Ozob, but the idea of an army of him, already has me freaked out. Imagine them arriving in their little clown cars. And you gotta shoot their noses. I don't know. Anyway, next one, agents. Okay, imagine a gang of minor rogue AIs that have broken into the corporeal world and can hunt your character. They run security scams and basically hate you. If they locate you, they can leap into anyone with a connected cyberdeck and use them to attack you. Like the agents from The Matrix, or the little cherub from Messiah. Do you remember that game? Way back, one of Shiny's games. Actually very ahead of its time and very interesting concept. Anyway, sorry, I digress. Not only would this be be unpredictable and exciting. There's also moral issues associated with killing members of this gang because their hosts are innocent. That would be just crazy. Maybe the cops come after you thinking you've gone cyber psycho. I don't know. It'll be kind of cool. Next, cannibals. If we're going to see more of the world... I want to see cannibals. I don't know. If you want to see more of the world outside Night City, maybe between Metropoli, we're going to need some new gangs for here too. I was thinking we're going to need something pretty wild to rival the existing baddies of the Badlands. So think, I guess, Mad Max's Worst or the Reavers from Firefly. People you essentially don't want to come across or end up in a cage as live meat, wondering which one of your 3 remaining limbs they're going to cut off for Sunday roast this week. Now this is very interesting. This one's from a little project I was working on, but I don't have the time and I'd love to see something like this in Cyberpunk. What about actual transhumans? I think that would be the right term, transhumans. Maybe, I don't know, but bear with me. People with literal animal hybridizations or grafts, like a bouncer whose skin is like a lobster carapace or a rhino. Imagine a wise guy thug in a suit with a human body but a head of a giant eagle. Maybe it's cybernetic, like a Jafar helmet in Stargate. Was that one of Horus's guys? I can't remember. But anyway, maybe it's actually an organic lab-grown eagle head, full size in proportion to a human body. You know, what about a guy with actual gorilla arms? Or a deadly clan of winged and taloned harpies? Dude, that would be awesome, wouldn't it? And you could do it in a very cyberpunky, cybernetic kind of way. What about maybe something akin to the Mox, but fightable? Like a highly motivated and aggressive doll gang with combat implants giving us absolute hell. I, for one, would probably do everything in my power to not fight this gang if it exists, and if I can team up with them, I expect. What about vampires? Yeah, vampires. Cyber vampires that use stealth and net running to leech your life force. Maybe the fangs are just for show, part of the brand as life-leeching gunks, but it would be cool if there was kind of their whole vibe was the vampire vibe gang, you know? And finally, I guess space is going to need some touch of gangdom too if we're going to scratch that itch. And there's plenty of ideas here I'm sure you can think of based of all the media out there, from long-limbed hollow-bone spacers to highly modified and adapted techno-wizards from Alpha Centauri. The ideas are endless, and knowing the creative genius at CDPR, we're going to get something very exciting if they do go in this direction as well. Oh, you know, what about zombies? Drugged out, shuffling gangers who want to bite you. No, okay, I'm just trolling with the zombies. Come on, let's move on. So anyway, that's a few gangs. Number 3, cyberspace. This is actually pretty important to me because I was a little disappointed and deflated with the cyberspace in the first game. I really wanted to see it kind of fleshed out a bit more and made into an integral and rich layer of the game. Now, having not played the tabletop, the pen and paper, maybe I'm way off base here. Maybe the cyberspace in the actual game was very true to the original game. But personally, what I'd love to see, if it fits, if it doesn't fit, forget about it, but I would like it improved, right? I'd like it to be an integral and rich layer of the game. The time we spend it in the first game is fleeting and ethereal, and it's very on rails, but the glimpses we get from Songbird, Alt, and some of the more hardcore netrunners out there like Nyx and T-Bug make it seem like there's a lot more to experience there than we ever got to see as the tourist we are in the first game. So what more could we see when we log on from our super chilled netrunner pod in our new apartments? I mean, let's think about it. So generally more fleshed out, navigatable, like a virtual world beneath the real one that we can, you know, spend some less on rails time existing and completing digital gigs and influencing the real world events or quests. Think Tron, the first one. Like I said, I could be way off base here, but it could be visually more appealing. Less blackness with dots and more vibrant and glitchy neon verse, the real cyberpunk but polygonal and on steroids. It needs to serve up more answers as to what is beyond the wall, what is beyond the black wall. Done in a way I can't imagine, you know, what it looks like, what Alt's ghost towns are like. If I were to design them, they'd probably just end up being like digital western towns with rogue AI sitting around gambling and shooting each other. Imagine the crazy characters that could appear. And maybe it could have some real impact on our corporeal character. Stay too long? A rogue AI hitches a ride on our cyber deck like with Songbird. It might be powerful and helpful or corrupting and controlling. In short, a dangerous digital playground where we can truly exist for a while and have an impact. I think that'd be super cool. Okay, number 2. Now we're getting to my absolute must-haves. And what I really want to see is story thread resolution or continuation. So I want to see continuation or at least conclusion of some of the semi-unsolved threads, from minor Easter eggs like FF06B5, side stories like Gary the Prophet, all the way through to the mind control experiment that we learn about with the paralysis and Sandra Dorset, along with the AI from behind the black wall and all this kind of stuff, all this bubbling corporate war and the power vacuum that I mentioned previously that we see in the tower ending. ending, continuation of these stories, and more, even with the absence of our own protagonist in the last game, when combined with new stories from Orion itself, will continue to flesh out this already rich world and give us another exceptional experience. And just before we get on to the last one, if you've been enjoying this, don't forget to drop a like, and if you're not already subscribed and you'd like to, that'll be cool too. And that takes us finally on to number 1, character and world continuity. I've settled with the fact that a new character is the only option moving forward for us. I say settled, accepted, because it was always going to be the way. And handling it like the Dragon Age games, as an example, would probably be the best option. So basically we will hear about our character and their daring do's and be a different character existing in a very accurately continued world. But along with that, I believe given the impact our digital self had on the world, they need to be a more integral part in the next game. So firstly, the world needs to be diffused enough to avoid invalidating anyone's choice of ending, but focused enough that it feels like the world RV left behind. I believe the setting of 2 years later is where the game will be, or at least sometime after that, as that ending can align just fine with all the other ones in choice and outcome. With regards to Arasaka, there are plenty of ways to write a congruous explanation of how things came to be regardless of our input. Just to be clear, I do not mean the face in the crowd ending is canon. I just mean that the world we see in the face in the crowd ending is where it will be, whether you chose that path or not. For example, maybe you chose Path of Glory as your own personal canon. So imagine the setting of the tower 2 years later, but V died a year and a half ago, pulling off the Crystal Palace heist, which you'll find out about if that was your chosen ending, and it pulls in from your save game. If you didn't, you won't hear about that Crystal Palace heist, or you won't see the effects on it when you go and visit there. During this time, there should be references to our characters and choices, have a drink named after us, be one of the Night City legends, all that good stuff. All the key choices must have continuity. Did V let Myers die? Then the president is different. Are you going to come across Brick? Maybe you chose to keep Paralis in the dark. Whatever the choices, they must be able to pick up from previous saves or give us a nicely fleshed out set of world building choices, either simply at the start or somehow woven into the game. So V needs to somehow be left how we left him or her. Chose face in the crowd? Maybe V is hidden somewhere as an Easter egg, running an illegal pineapple pizza business. Maybe V's a fixer. Maybe V is just dead, killed during some cyber psycho rampage. Maybe, just maybe, V is an idea, an unknown like Morgan Blackhand. Nobody knows what happened to V. And sometime in the future, either Orion or, I don't know, Pluto, whatever they name the next one, V will make an appearance or return using the presets from our save and play alongside us for a bit. That would be absolutely mental. Anyway, maybe V's just got a job as a dispatcher or works on a radio show. Either way, show our V some love and respect. I do have plenty of faith that this won't be an incongruous or disconnected future. Sure, it's much more complex than making the Witcher games 1, 2, and 3 flow into each other because you had the one set character there and the variety of outcomes and parallel plots were not quite the same. But if anyone can mesh it all together, the Reds can. And just as a bonus, because I couldn't really stick this in my list because it would have been number 11 anyway, but I can take it or leave it. But I think co-op would be nice. Having the ability to have a tune drop in and run gigs with us would be awesome. And I see modders are already paving the way for this, but be interested to see where that comes out in the future, if anything. And heists too, more kind of plannable and varied heists. I would love to see that as a mechanic where you actually have to plan out a heist and you have multiple ways of doing it and going in and building up your crew and their abilities, that kind of thing. And I know people are going to be screaming from the rooftops, NG+, we want NG+ in the next game, but to be honest with you, NG+ never really made any sense to me. Restarting a game and going through the initial early quests where you're supposed to be a squishy and being absolutely superpowered just made no sense to me. So I'm really not too worried if NG+ doesn't make it in the next game, but I have a feeling in the community list I make next is going to be a very highly ranked desire. But anyway, there you go, Tunes. There's my top 10 things I want to see in Orion, along with more of the same. I know it's a while off, but I can't wait to see what ideas and wishes you have for it. In the meantime, check out this video if you haven't. At least 800,000 of you haven't seen it yet, so check it out. If you're here right to the end, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.